death to occur as a result? Probably not at the beginning. But that's what happened, and that's where the responsibility lies. And here you're going to see a situation that's somewhat similar, again, with unintended consequences and how it blows up multiple families' lives.
Two young teenagers in Ellsworth, just 14 and 16 years old, are facing charges tonight in connection with the suicide of a classmate. Police say their crime was committed online.
It is that online behavior that has led to the arrest of those two teenagers, both facing possible charges of conspiracy to commit murder.
Kids being bullied at school used to find relief when the bell rang at the end of the day. But now, most everyone has the technology to reach out and hurt someone at all hours of the day. And that leads to problems at the schoolhouse door. When people are able to hide behind a screen, they can say more hurtful things without seeing the other person's reaction.
When you have words in front of you and you're reacting to that, you're not seeing the emotional response of the person on the other side of the screen. So it's really easy to take back something really awful.
So the point here is, there's one thing that you can pick up from this presentation, is you cannot control the impact of your words, your pictures, your tweets, your posts. You can't control what is happening on the other side of the screen. But you know what? You are 100% responsible for what happens on the other side of the screen. So understand that now we're talking about, do you think, starting out as bullying, and it ends up in conspiracy to commit murder charges for two teenagers. So you can bet that the state is going to seek to charge them now, not as juveniles, but as adults. And you're looking at juvenile detention time, jail time, for sure, with situations like this. And obviously, the lifelong impact, Judge Hull and I can tell you, what we see in front of us, it's devastating. Obviously, school impact, whether you're expelled from school, whether it jeopardizes any future education opportunities you might have, any future job opportunities you might have. Depending on what charge you receive or are convicted of, it could control where you live, who you can live with, what you can live near. Can you live near a school or a park? Well, if you pick up certain felony charges, no, you can't. So we're talking really serious impacts as a result of what started out as bullying.
So Judge Bowles, before we go on, I want to ask you a couple questions. So both Judge Bowles and I served as judges in juvenile court. And so when cases like that happen, and kids came in front of you, did you tend to see the kids, were they remorseful? Were they sorry, like in this situation, were they sorry about what they did? And how did that impact the criminal case?
Again, it's devastating oftentimes to sit in a juvenile court, because by the time you see the juvenile there, and a juvenile always has to have his or her parents or guardian with them, everybody is shattered, quite frankly. Everybody is remorseful. Depending on what the behavior is, oftentimes they're embarrassed. But you know what? It's too late. It's too late. You're standing here in front of me. We've got criminal charges. We either have somebody who's been seriously hurt, if not dead for one reason or another, or just psychologically traumatized for some reason.
And so one of the things that comes up, just as we kind of share the experience, I'll tell you, I've been a judge now since 2009, and some of the hardest things that I've had to listen to is what we call victim impact statements. So whether it's a case where, and in most cases don't result in death, but they're harassment, what will happen is that the victim of the harassment will come into court, either themselves or with the family, and they will share with the court and share with the other people the impact that being cyberbullied had. And what, again, is so hard as a judge is when you see and hear the impact that this bullying had. It's one that the kids who sent the text messages, you can tell they're genuinely remorseful. They had actually no idea what kind of impact they were having. But again, you have to remember, it doesn't change the impact on the victim. And the other thing as a judge is, we feel bad. As a judge, I don't lose my feelings. I don't stop being a human being. I feel horrible for the person that sent that text, and I feel horrible for their parents. But as Judge Bull said, it doesn't change the fact that they're accountable and that they have to be punished. Now, the punishment also doesn't end in court. There's other things that you have to understand and come with this. So if somebody ends up in juvenile court, and in front of us, then we end up imposing a sentence. And a lot of times we're not imposing jail, but we're imposing somebody has to do community service hours. Somebody has to do or refrain from doing certain things. For instance, we can decide that you can't be on social media. And we have probation officers that can monitor that. There's a lot of times where, again, because of community service hours, if you were in sports, if you were in a play, if you were in music, all of a sudden the things that you used to do after school, you can no longer do because you're no longer in control of your time. We're in control of your time. And parents get upset and kids get upset, but unfortunately that's part of that accountability piece. In addition, when we talk about reputation, privacy, future career choices, it's so hard when you think about how fast this happens. Sometimes it happens before you even get a chance to catch yourself and tell yourself to stop. You're angry about something, you're mad about something, you decide you want to respond to something. You guys can text faster. I'm a one finger texter, right? Your parents text like that, punching at things. You guys, with your 2 thumbs and whatever else, you can text so fast that you can text and hit send before I even finish the sentence. And that's good in some ways, but bad in the criminal context, because a lot of times, once you hit send, it's too late to pull back what you just said.
3 students at a high school in Gurnee are facing charges in a case of sexting and cyberbullying.
Right, they were charged with felony distribution of child pornography, and as Judy Wang reports, if guilty, the charges come with severe ramifications.
It is not over yet. Gurnee police say the 3 boys are not the only ones who did this, and they will likely make more arrests. School administrators sent parents an email about the issue. Parents and students are now wondering just how far this investigation will reach. All of the students involved are freshmen at Warren Township's Plain campus. Some students agree what happened is a crime. Lake County prosecutors charged the 3 boys with felony distribution of child porn. Investigators declined to release specifics, only that it involves the texting of sexually explicit photos of a female classmate and cyberbullying.
So as we get to the end here, we want to end with something that we're seeing happen more and more and more, and that's sexting and what's called child pornography. Now, like Judge Bull said, when we're talking about child pornography, people misunderstand what it is. If you're under the age of 18, you have possession of a semi-nude or nude photograph in a compromising position, that's a summary for what child pornography is. So when somebody sends you a picture of a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or somebody sends you a picture of a classmate in that position, and they're under the age of 18, you're now in possession of child pornography. That is a big, big deal. That's a class 4 felony. And when I say felony, punishable by up to a year in jail or commitment to the Illinois Department of Juvenile Justice. But then even worse, when people send that picture on, it goes from possessing child pornography to distributing child pornography, which takes it from a class 4 felony all the way up to a class 1 felony. And a class 1 felony can be punishable by all the way from 4 to 15 years in prison. But people don't understand that photograph, that one photograph that maybe was sent to them by a boyfriend or a girlfriend, can be a criminal charge that will end up in a situation like you just saw at Warren Township. Did those 3 15-year-olds ever think that what they did was going to result with them being on Channel 9 News? Absolutely not. But the reality is it doesn't matter what they thought. The reality is that in the state of Illinois, they can be charged with possession of child pornography. So we're going to move on. We're getting towards the end here, but there are questions that come up or things that Judge Bowles and I are challenged on every day, questions. And so I'm going to start with Judge Bowles, because one of the things that comes up all the time when we're talking about this is, hold on, wait a minute, it's my property, it's my phone, you can't search it. Is that a good defense to a charge, Judge Bowles?
Again, it isn't, and I think we've talked about that enough to understand that either reasonable suspicion or probable cause for a search warrant clearly can get access to all of this material.
And not just the material that's on your phone, but material that you deleted and that you thought that you got rid of.
Well, and that's one of the biggest expenditures, increasing expenditures for law enforcement authorities now, are forensic IT people who literally sit all day and trace this type of social media. Things that have been deleted, where you are, at what time, when pictures have come in, when they were attempted to be deleted. So they definitely got the funding to be ahead of the game on all of this.
And first of all, I know that it's a 225, is that all right? So.
Yes, but we can go a few minutes after the vote.
Okay.
So the bell will ring. minutes, but we'll sit tight just for a few extra minutes.
Great, we're almost there. Okay, the next thing is, it was consensual. You know what? They gave me the picture. How can I get in trouble for somebody sending me a picture? Well, in the end, that's not a defense in the state of Illinois. If you possess a picture, then you are committing that crime. Now, the law says that if somebody sends you a picture, you didn't want that picture, you never asked for that text, you have a reasonable period of time to delete that from your phone, to tell a teacher, tell a parent, and you haven't committed a crime. It's when somebody gets sent that picture, they decide they're going to keep that picture, they decide they're going to forward that picture, that's when, doesn't matter how you got it, whether it was delivered consensually or not, it can be a crime. Because, Bowles, what about the fact that everybody supposedly is doing this?
You know what, that's the thing, we hear this all the time. I mean, whether you're in traffic court or juvenile court, we hear, well, I'm not the only one that does this, everybody's doing this. And you know what, we understand that. We understand that, but I don't have everybody in front of me, I have you in front of me. Unfortunately, you drew the unlucky straw, and you're the one that's here, and an example is going to be made out of you, the one that's here in front of me. So we get that everybody does it, but for whatever reason, you were unlucky at this time.
It was a joke, I didn't mean to hurt anybody. I think you've seen from those stories, it's certainly not a defense. I took just one picture, Judge Bowles, one picture. You guys, does one picture does it make a difference whether it's 1 or 100? And emphatic, no, absolutely not. One picture is enough. And I didn't forward it to anybody else. We've gone through that as well. So, as we wrap up here, normally we have a little bit of a given time for questions. We might have time for 1 or 2 questions. Does anybody have any questions about anything we've talked about or anything with the law that we've heard?